What's up, you beautiful bastards? It's Raziel here again, and as an ancient relic of the past, I've played a lot of MMORPGs. I mean, clear back in the early 90s. Hell, I was even playing MUDs before graphical MMORPGs were a thing. Yes, I know, showing my age. But over time, the genre has lost a lot of what made it unique, addicting, and quite frankly, in my opinion, the greatest genre of video game ever designed. But what was that? What was lost? Well, strap in because this is going to be a long one, and join me on the journey and we will explore ultimately what was lost from the MMORPG that's made them what they are today.
I am Raziel.
Now, before I go into detail about what I've discovered are the largest parts of the OG MMORPG formula that have been essentially torn out and tossed to the side by developers, I do want to put it out front and center that a part of why MMORPGs in this day and age seem to suck worse or cause burnout much quicker for people like me is because we as gamers have changed. I mean, I'm not the same person I was in high school and in my early years of college. And neither are you. I'm 40 years old now, and like many of you, I have larger life commitments and responsibilities that, quite frankly, younger me didn't have. We've explored the same neural pathways over and over again, and we will never, ever again experience the awe and wonder that the MMORPG provided us for the first time way back, in my case, the 90s and early 2000s.
Too old as fuck.
Back then, the thought of being in a world where so many people you saw in the game were actual other people was kind of a novel idea. I mean, up to this point, we had mostly experienced single-player games on consoles, and massive worlds with other people were new and exciting. I mean, outside of that, the only real multiplayer online with PC functionality we enjoyed mostly was RTS games and, like Warcraft 2 and StarCraft, in addition to FPS games like Quake or, Halo, things like that. I mean, juxtapose that with today's games, which by and large are always online, more than they're not, and you'll see how much has changed. A lot has changed. So that aspect we can never experience again, and I understand that. I've made my peace with that, as should you. However, all the blame on what's happened to the MMORPG genre does not fall on us and our aging asses. In fact, the vast majority of the blame falls on the developers themselves, and I'll explain why. The OG MMORPG formula has largely been abandoned and replaced with the more modern games as a service model, which essentially is just a bastardized version of single-player games with co-op features. In addition, MMO developers have disconnected from the roots of the genre that were largely based in Dungeons & Dragons aspects and living, breathing worlds in favor of making on-rails, choiceless, single-narrative style games, common in single-player RPGs and work fine there, while trying to appeal to as many player bases as possible to make the most amount of money possible. But as I've said 1,000 times in the past, when you try to make something for everybody, you end up making something for nobody. Does that make sense? So, what are the largest aspects of the MMORPG that have been abandoned by developers over the years? And pretty much practically every MMORPG that's modern that I can think of. The one thing that differentiated MMOs from every other genre in existence when they came out is the social aspect. Now, if you've been an enjoyer of my content for any real length of time, you will have heard me saying in the past that one of the greatest things about Generation 1 MMORPGs, such as Assurance Call, Dark Age of Camelot, Ultima Online, EverQuest, Final Fantasy XI, and even some of the first next-gen MMOs like Vanilla World of Warcraft, is that the world of these games was the protagonist. What does that mean? Well, essentially it meant that there was no overarching, always constant narrative in these games that the game forced you to participate in. These games felt like living, breathing worlds because you were dropped into them and had to discover the lore and all the small and big storylines in the game yourself. Because these games were so open, with no one narrative or role being shoved down your throat, you quite literally had to make all the decisions and discoveries 100% on your own. And I'm not talking about dialogue choices in a game. Those didn't exist where you just click through dialogue choices. It was choices you made in the game, such as where you go to level, what quests you do, what monsters you choose to kill, what groups you join, who to trust, who to kill and take their stuff, etc. The world was quite literally your oyster because it's how MMORPGs were fundamentally designed at their core. And within that design was the most unique and important thing of all that didn't exist in any other genre. Every single aspect of the game's design was designed to present opportunities for you to organically meet other players and interact with them. Whether that means you made friends or enemies remains to be seen. Form fellowships, alliances, guilds, and, establish rivals on your server. These were the stories in the game. The players. You see, in any game, there can only ever be so much RNG. And what I mean by that is the NPCs, dungeons, locations, stories that the developers made, and quite literally anything made by the developer, can only be so diverse because it's programmed in the game. In the end, a boss, a mob, etc. will always be somewhat predictable. They're designed that way, which is fine. The world and everything in it is ultimately static and does what it's programmed to do. Mobs will continue their patrols, enemy NPC factions will continue to kill each other and hate each other on whatever timer or respawn that they have, weather patterns, and essentially the entire world will continue to be pretty much static and the same. Until you introduce the one and only variable that can't be predicted with 100% accuracy, which is the player themselves. Once the player is introduced, the world starts to react to what the player is actually doing. The areas they go to, the mobs they kill, the loot they get, especially the other players they encounter. The games like D&D were designed to force the player to interact with and adapt to the world itself. Quite literally, get good or get the fuck out. The design of the world was literally targeted at supporting this. Let's take some of the OG MMOs and use them as examples here to, explain and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Dying in these games, in these original games, was much more devastating than it is now in modern MMOs, where there literally are no consequences. In the old games, you'd lose items, XP, and you would have to run to your corpse. Corpse running was a huge thing in a lot of these games, like Assurance Call and EverQuest, for example. If you died somewhere particularly dangerous, you would need to go to a town or around the area and ask other players to help you get your stuff back. I mean, bam, that's social interaction right there that you have to do, or you can take the risk and try to do it yourself and probably just die again and lose even more stuff. After leveling out of starter zones, most of these games were extremely hard, if not impossible, to go any further 100% solo. See, again, EverQuest or Final Fantasy XI. You would need to start finding groups and parties to go hunting, to go to dangerous areas or to dungeons, or to just continue to gain power and level up. Even in situations where you were strong enough to kill monsters on your own, it would never be as efficient as doing it in a party. So boom, there's more social interaction that you were required to do to continue your journey in these games. Back then, there were also no quest hubs with NPCs with giant exclamation points and question marks above their head to spoon feed you places to go and things to do. Instead, it was just exploring and setting out in a random direction to see what you can find. NPCs dropping, random notes that hint to locations of quest items or ancient lore or things like that, or where a hidden dungeon is. Or you would see other players with unique and really cool looking weapons or armor. But man, right there, bada bing, you'd have to go fucking talk to them in order to learn where they got the item. And then they could guide you. You become friends with them, or they could just give you a hint or tell you where to go to find the monster that drops the start of the quest. And it would essentially, once again, put you in a situation where making friends and interacting with the other players of the world was not only extremely helpful, but almost required. And a lot of these items, many of which would be at the very bottom of a dungeon in a chest somewhere or something that you couldn't get to, or it'd be extremely hard to get to 100% on your own. So you would bring your friends, you'd call up your buddies, and you'd all head out there together to get this item. Let's take it a step further and look at PvP. PvP was designed in such a way where guilds fought for control or areas of the world in order to provide your faction or your guild, clan, whatever, with a huge bonus. See games like Assurance Call or Dark Age of Camelot, where I still think was some of the best PvP ever made. In other games like, Vanilla WoW or Wrath of the Lich King even, you would have certain bosses that you could only interact with and fight if your faction owned certain parts of the world. So these aspects of PvP would encourage you to go and join a guild or a clan, or to make friends, and so you'd have allies to line up with. Or, in other cases of organic PvP, somebody came up to kill you, so you would make friends, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and you'd go gank the guy that ganked you, right? You have this whole pack of people running in. And it was absolutely incredible to experience this, and kind of terrifying to experience it if you were the one on the other end of it. And of course, in PvP, you would always, after getting kills, get spammed by the kids, with hate messaging for, essentially beating their ass in the game. But that was just par for the course, and what made PvP fun, to be quite honest. When you did dungeons and certain areas of the game where they were extremely dangerous, and require coordination of heals and crowd control to keep your party alive. You remember that? When you needed crowd control to survive certain pulls in dungeons, you couldn't just pull and AoE everything down like is common in every single MMO today. The design of combat itself was encouraging social interaction and communication with party members. Is it any surprise that around the same time that we started, seeing the social interactions go away, was around the same time we also started to see developers kind of drop support for the idea of hybrid and support classes in these games? I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Now, you may be asking, Raz, you handsome devil you, what was the incentive to go through all the trouble of making friends in a game, especially if you were, socially retarded or an emotionally stunted peon? Well, my brother or sister in Christ, it was because what you got out of it was not only some of the best looking and most powerful loot, fastest and most efficient leveling and power gains, exploration of areas too dangerous to explore alone, but it was also the friendships and enemies that you made that would endure beyond a simple video game. If you're as old as I am, and I want you to think back on all the best MMO gaming memories you have ever had, you'll start to see that they have little or nothing to do with the actual items, boss kills, and whatnot that you actually acquired or did in the game itself. And it has a lot to do with who was there with you during your personal in-game story that you were crafting with these other human beings. And all the developer really had anything to do with was creating the setting in which for it to happen in. All the best memories I have involved people that were my real life friends and people who afterwards became friends that I'm still in contact with and consider RL friends because of the amazing experiences and fun we had together. While I couldn't really recall certain kills or when I found some item, right? A perfect example you can use to kind of understand what I'm getting at here is if you look at the Lord of the Rings films. I mean, Middle-earth is a huge world, filled with, wonder, magic, darkness, high fantasy, elves, dwarves. Yet what made those stories so good were the relationships between the characters and how they interacted with one another on the journey and how they perceived and interacted with themselves. In the OG MMORPGs, these characters were you and your friends and your enemies that you created in the world of the game. In the OG MMOs, the game did everything in its power to put you in situations where you would make these friends and enemies, not just focus on some single narrative where you're forced to be the hero and stand in cutscene after cutscene with NPCs that the game treats as the real heroes of the game story anyway. Back in the OG days of the genre, phrases like content droughts didn't exist because the players were interacting with each other and exploring and fighting with each other and racing against each other. That was the content. It also helped that we weren't restricted back then, I should say, by stupid-ass time gating, and where pretty much every activity in the game is locked out weekly and you can only do it one fucking time. But I digress. To top off what I'm talking about in regards to the social aspect of MMORPGs was the concept of server reputation. Back in the day, your server over time would learn of your deeds or misdeeds, and your clan and the people you spent the most time with would build up a reputation. You would become famous or infamous depending on what you did in the game. And no, this wasn't some game system. I'm talking about how the other players in the game viewed you. Were you an asshole that killed other players and took all their shit? Or were you, part of a clan or a guild that owned most of a particular faction's land or always winning in PvP battles? Or were you just the nice and helpful player that everybody messaged when they needed a corpse run or needed advice or how to build their character correctly? These were decisions you could not take lightly because there was no real way to escape your reputation once it was established. The developers completely fucked this aspect by introducing paid services where you could server transfer, level skip, story skip, name or faction change, and just do pretty much whatever you want, and you could be forgotten in the, swipe of a credit card. On top of all that, the server sharding and cross-realm access that they've done have also helped to eliminate any form of server reputation. It was this layer of anonymity that turned the communities of MMORPGs into essentially Reddit and 4chan sites, because a lot of people just started acting like entitled twats because all the accountability for their actions was lost. No longer did they have to worry about their server rep, where in the past, if you had a bad one, the only way you could escape it is by making a new character completely re-rolling. Now they could just swipe their credit card and it's gone. Thus, we see now how MMORPG communities began to become extremely toxic. Now that we know where the largest part of the MMO genre was uprooted and lost, we can take what I just talked about and compare it to what MMORPGs are today. At least how they are today in this regard. The MMORPG has largely become designed in the exact same way that single-player games are designed. There's a single overarching narrative that everyone must follow in order to get to the end game. You are the hero, i.e., just for example, the hero of Azeroth or the warrior of light, using World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV respectively. And there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to be what the game tells you. You have to fill the role the game tells you to fill in the story. And there's no way to progress to endgame unless you do so. The games not only make it hard to socially interact, but quite literally in most cases, other players and interacting are actually a hindrance to your progress. They're not an asset anymore. Mobs tagged by a certain number of players cannot be tagged by you, for example, and so you don't get as much credit or any credit at all for certain quests or kills. You can click a single button and just stand AFK until a queue pops and you can go into any dungeon or raid or PvP match. And then all the random players will be found for you. No interaction will really ever take place between you unless you get a bad pull or die to a boss or something or lose a BG, in which case, someone fucks up, get ready to be completely blasted by junior high levels of rage.
Yeah, everybody's new wrestler are gonna know how big of a noob you are.
Shut me up, little girl. Come here.
You're acting like a fucking 12-year-old who just lost his fucking diaper.
Fuck.
Nobody really needs to talk to anyone anymore, outside of high-end raids, but herein lies the other problem that modern MMOs have, which we touched on earlier that other MMOs didn't have back in the day, which was incentive. The incentive, by and large now, is gone. I mean, it's taken away with the social aspect, since now the games are designed as kind of every man for himself. The hardest content may still reward the best and most powerful loot, but it doesn't really look unique anymore. It's not special. Gone are the days of showing off your gear or your super rare piece of armor, sword, or mount, in town, thus inspiring conversations to happen between you and lower level players that are interested in how to get to that point in the game. That's how I first first got started raiding in MMORPGs was because of this aspect. Gear, by many accounts, is meaningless. It's being replaced the next patch with just crafted gear, thus nullifying needing to get the previous tier's gear at all in the first place, because it doesn't really give you an advantage to the next tier, because you can just buy crafted gear when the next expansion comes out, or the next patch comes out, I should say. And companies have shifted to the only differences between easy mode gear and the hardest difficulty equivalent is the color of the gear. The weapons and items all look the same, the mounts all look the same, they're just a different color tint if you get it on a higher difficulty. And a lot of MMOs are guilty of this. This, in my opinion, is also part of an issue of too many difficulties of raiding and dungeons and whatnot being in the games, but that could be an entire video on its own, and I could do one like that if you guys are interested. I'm not going to go down that road here. No tangent there. That would take another hour. Overall, though, over time, the world of MMOs stopped making the player adapt to the game and instead starting adapting the game to the players, i.e. making something for nobody because it's trying to appeal to everybody. There's a reason why beloved, series like the Soulsborne games don't have a difficulty slider. The game flat out screams you, this game isn't for pussies, so either get good or get the fuck out. Don't play the game. That is the attitude that the MMORPG genre used to have. And it had it in spades, but over time, it just lost it. It lost the majority of what made the genre unique and magical and addicting, like the old, style of gaming addiction where you'd be up all night playing, go to bed, and all you could think about was getting up to play again. God, I miss that. The fun, the exploration, the social interaction, seeing all your boys, logged into the game or your Ventrilo server, and just going out into the danger of the worlds has all been sacrificed on the altar of accessibility and, of course, greed. Now, I also understand that some of these changes that the developers made are because the players begged for them. Players whining caused quite a bit of this to happen, and in my opinion, the developers, quite frankly, should have just told them to shut the fuck up. Now, I'm not saying that players don't have something good to contribute, and if there's something imbalanced or fundamentally broken, they should absolutely speak up, and developers should absolutely take that feedback. But a lot of players don't really know what they want. This may seem controversial, but I believe it's the truth. People in general tend to be lazy, and anything that may require them to do any real work or get better, whether it be in a game or outside, they generally tend to not do it and instead whine and complain about it. And they want the thing to come to them and be easier. Instant gratification. In the case of MMORPGs, though, enough whining and crying over time, and the developers actually started listening to it and caused a lot of these issues. Things like LFG and LFR and WoW, the loss of raid and dungeon attunements that we had in the past. Shit like, actually replacing other players with NPCs for dungeons like Trust did in Final Fantasy XIV. And mark my words, it's only a matter of time before that game has the same trust system incorporated into raids, where you don't need to play with anyone else ever fucking again. It wouldn't surprise me. It's coming. At any rate, having been a huge fan and quite frankly an addict of this genre for the last 25 plus years, I've personally borne witness to the things I've talked about in this video, and I've seen its downfall and the attempts to rise again. People want it to come back. Is there any hope for that in the future? Is there any way we can get back to where we were? Who knows? I don't have a lot of hope. I personally have my eyes on Ashes of Creation, but God only knows when that's ever coming out. And I'd say it really depends on the philosophy of the developers making the new games that do end up coming out in this genre. They need to go back and understand the roots of the MMORPG genre. Don't try to keep reinventing the wheel, and above all, stick to their guns with their design if the design is based in what we know works. A lot of modern MMOs started copying WoW, for example, and made WoW clones after WoW had already made its biggest mistakes, not before, which is why they've all failed. They copied the version of WoW that had already lost everything that made it a good game in terms of its social atmosphere, the things that made it the greatest MMO of all time for so many years. Anyway, guys, this video's gone on for quite a while, but what are your thoughts? Comment down below. Guys, if you like my content, especially if you like this video, this took a lot of time to make, please hit the like button and share it with friends. This has been a big deal for me and been in my mind for a long time, and I wanted to make this video, and I felt like it was time. So, guys, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. Comments down below if you like it, thumbs up, subscribe. If you didn't like it, that's cool too. Give it a thumbs down. Tell me to go fuck myself, and you can go fuck yourself. But everybody, have a wonderful time, and as always, my friends, keep it real.